When the troops are divided, when the cavalry is defeated and fleeing, when the camp is overrun by the enemy, the important thing is not to lose heart and keep fighting. And victory will surely come.
After his victory at the Axona River, Caesar moved on the city of Noviodon without letting the enemy recollect. He had heard that there were no defenders there, but approaching the city, he could not take it at first because of the deep moat and high walls, although there were few defenders in the city.
I began to build siege towers. The sight of these colossal structures and the swiftness with which they were constructed had a profound impact on the barbarians. They promptly dispatched emissaries to negotiate the surrender of their city. In response, I commanded the taking of hostages and the confiscation of all weapons within the city. My legions then advanced towards the city of Belovic. Even as army approached the city, we were met by elderly men and women pleading for mercy. In defense of Belovics was Diviciac, explaining their behavior by incitement of the princes, who, aware of their guilt, had already fled to Britain. In an act of clemency, I pardoned the people of Belovics, but commanded them to surrender all weapons within their city and provide 600 hostages.
Next, he headed for the Ambians, who immediately surrendered to him. The Ambians were bordered by the Nervians. On his inquiries about this people, Caesar received the answer that the Nervi do not let to themselves merchants with luxury goods, as they believe that these items pamper the soul and weakens courage. The Nervi reproached the other BELGAE that they surrendered to the Romans. They themselves said that they would not send ambassadors to the Romans and would not accept any terms of peace. After a 3-day march through the country of the Nervi, Caesar learned from the prisoners that no more than 10 miles from his camp flows the Sabis River. Beyond this river, the Nervi were encamped, waiting for the arrival of the Romans. With them were also their allies, Atrebates and Neromendes. In addition, the Nervi were waiting for reinforcements from the Aduatucs, who were already on their way. Caesar ordered the legionaries to camp on a hill in front of the Sabis River. Beyond the river was a hill covered with dense forest, so it was not easy to see what was there. It was in this forest that the enemy lurked, and along the river he left rare cavalry units. Caesar sent the cavalry beyond the river, which was less than a meter deep. There a battle ensued with the cavalry of the Nervi. The enemy cavalry then rushed to the Romans, then again ran away into the woods. However, the Roman horsemen did not pursue it, because they did not know what was hiding in the forest. In the meantime, the 6 legions that had arrived first on the spot began to break camp. When the Nervi saw this, they rushed out of the forest to the river and crushed the Roman cavalry, which had to retreat. Quickly forcing the shallow river, the army of BELGAE rushed up the hill, on which the construction of the Roman camp was boiling.
I had to urgently recall soldiers from construction work, return those who left to collect building materials, build battle orders, and encourage the soldiers. Time was very limited because the enemy was approaching rapidly. To the rescue came the experience of the legionaries, who already knew what they need to do in such a situation, even without instructions from me, their commander. Having given the most necessary orders, I went to the left flank, where the 10th Legion was positioned. I reminded the soldiers of their former valor and asked them to bravely withstand the enemy attack. As soon as the enemy approached, I gave the signal for battle and departed to the center of the army.
Here, he found the soldiers in the midst of battle. Many of the legionnaires, in order not to waste time, had taken places and fought outside their units. There was no way of knowing where to send the reserves. The whole situation of an unplanned battle made the fluctuation of military happiness inevitable. On the left flank, the 10th and 9th Legions, throwing pylons at the barbarians from above, drove them back into the river. The enemy was exhausted from running up the high ground and could not resist the best units of the Romans. They had to retreat back across the river, with the Romans rushing after them and killing many during the crossing. In the heat of pursuit, the Romans crossed the river and were now at a disadvantage themselves with the river behind them. The Nervi tried to exploit this. They turned around and attacked the Romans again. However, they were defeated again and retreated into the forest. The neighboring two legions were in a similar situation. They had also pushed the enemy across the river and were now fighting near the bank. As a result of the left flank and center being near the river, the last two legions still near the camp had a difficult time. The Nervi, with their entire remaining mass, rushed at these two legions, trying to outflank them. Some of the barbarians rushed towards the Roman camp, occupying it. The Roman cavalry, crushed at the beginning of the battle, returned to the camp, but ran into the enemies there and was again turned into flight. The same thing happened to the soldiers of the wagon. When they saw that the left flank victoriously knocked the enemy from the hill and forced him over the river, they went out to collect the booty. But when they turned around and saw that the enemies are already in the Roman camp, they rushed with shouts and noise to flee. At this difficult moment, to help Caesar arrived horsemen of the allied tribe, which was famous for its outstanding bravery. However, seeing that the Roman camp is filled with the enemy, the legions are fighting almost surrounded, and the riders and soldiers of the wagons, scattered in different directions, decided that it is too late to engage in battle. They turned back and told their fellow countrymen that the Roman troops were defeated. However, Caesar did not lose his presence of mind at such a critical moment. He rushed to the right flank. Here, the Romans, huddled in a single pile, themselves prevented themselves from fighting. Many centurions were interrupted, and the legionaries were tired and morally depressed. Meanwhile, the enemy was advancing on both flanks, and the situation was very dangerous. Caesar had no reinforcements at hand. Then Caesar marched into the front ranks, ordered the manipulas to be extended, and moved the troops to the offensive. Caesar's appearance energized the soldiers. Each of them wanted to show his courage in front of the commander. The Roman troops across the river had already captured the enemy camp, but seeing what was happening in the Roman camp with maximum speed, moved back. The return of these troops completely changed the course of the battle. Noticing the panic of the enemy, The fleeing soldiers of the wagon went into battle even without weapons, and the cavalry began to fight everywhere to bravery to make up for their shameful flight. The enemy, for his part, showed extraordinary courage and did not retreat. In the place of the fallen first ranks, the second ranks rose. This gave Caesar reason to assert that the battle ended with the complete destruction of the entire tribe of Nervi. But in fact, it was an exaggeration. When the Roman legionnaires were exhausted and many fled, Caesar did not lose his presence of mind and continued to fight bravely. This case showed that no matter how bad the situation was, the commander should not despair, but by all means continue to look for ways to turn the situation in his favor. Thanks for watching the video to the end. If you liked it, put a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new interesting videos. See you soon.